fabric that we use, that's 6 inch?
Gotcha.
That's been through the ringer. All this fabric is polyester, and so it's safe. It's safe on your skin as well. That means it's not like fiberglass or something where you have to worry about not touching it. Before we even start, I've just noticed that the shears are kind of gummed up. I want to clean them up. Really carry.
It's not separate.
What's that?
Right there.
We'll save those.
Okay.
I got my pair that I brought with me. And actually, this is a good illustration. The coating will adhere to all building materials. Okay, so whatever you're working on in that deck that I've seen so far, no problem. The vinyl siding, excuse me, the deck itself, what else? Any of the metals that are out there, plywood, okay, good adhesion to all those surfaces. But you can see that it also adheres to the stainless steel and the shears. Tough surface to adhere to is stainless. This product does a pretty good job of it. And really the only way that you can clean them up is by slicing it off, because there's no other way to get it off. So this is still pretty fresh, it was only used yesterday. And in order to cut the fabric, make sure the cutting edge will be somewhat clean. And so you just keep a straight edge razor blade on the job like this so you can keep your shears clean. You'll see why it's important, because cutting the fabric is really an integral part of the process in making sure that everything comes out nice and flat and smooth. Okay, so fabric comes on different widths on a roll. This one happens to be 6 inch. There's some 4 inch over here, and that big roll you saw was 40 inch. Right? The big roll is used for the big field of the roof, big wide open areas. Before you even start that, you're going to flash your perimeters, make sure everything is solid. So I'm just going to take a piece of the 6 inch fabric, and I'll just slice a piece off this way. I'm only doing a demo. Normally you would just keep it on the roll and keep running all the way around the perimeter. And what we want to do is, this is the deck, and this is the wall, and we want to do an inside corner. Okay? So that's exactly where we'll put the fabric, once it starts to cooperate. The brushes are an inexpensive disposable brush. The beauty of this brush is that it's got a large bristle on it, so it takes a lot of product, right? And the intent is to get the product out of the bucket and on the roof. So we want the biggest brush we can use to do that. Right? That's why so it's big bristle, but this one also is hollow. All right? And so when you put it in the bucket of coating, it flows. All right? Now the advantage to that is when you get to the end of the day or lunchtime, and you want to put your brushes away, go get lunch and come back. If you have a half a bucket of coating, you just put them all in the half bucket, drop a lid on it loosely, come back after lunch, take them all out and go back to work. Do the same thing if that's what you need for tomorrow morning, or if you need it for next week. All right, doesn't matter. Excuse me. So, and this is a lot easier to show you in a real situation on the deck, but when you dip the brush in, dip it almost all the way up to the metal ferrule, right? And when I take it out, I'm not going to touch the side of the bucket. That's kind of a painter's technique, where you touch it and put it back. If you do that, you're putting the coating back in the pail, and the whole idea is to get it out. All right? So I'm just going to take it out. I didn't even touch the pail. All right? Now I got a load on here. So I'm going to put some right on the wall, and if you notice, I just lay it on. I'm not brushing it out. It's a coating, and I want to make sure that as a coating, there's plenty of it in place. Now, it looks like paint, it smells like paint. We're using painting tools to put it on, but it ain't paint, okay? It's an elastomer coating. So if I keep going back and forth like a paint, all I'm doing is tickling it, and it doesn't help anything to tickle it, okay? So instead, I'm just going to dip some more in and make sure I've got a very generous coat on in the area that I want to apply the fabric. Okay? And that's as far as I need to go with the brush. Done. Coated, it's done. One tip though is that whenever you're working with the brush, is to lay the brush down this way. Lay it low against there, flat against the side. Because if I stand the brush up and do that, see what happens? So it's easier if you just lay it down and it leaves the coating back where you want it. There is a top and a bottom to the fabric, and the way it comes off the roll, just like that. There you go. That's the top, and that's the bottom. And you'll notice that this one's a little shinier and that's a little fuzzier. It's preferred if you use the shiny side up. If you end up with the fuzzy side up, it'll leave fuzz when you're finished, and it takes a little more coating to cover the fuzz. Other than that, there's no harm. It's just that it comes out neater if you use the shiny side. So now I'm going to put the fabric on. You notice I'm putting my fingers right into it to tuck it into place. Okay, now I can use my fingers. I can use the shears to tuck it, make a nice neat corner out of it. But the one thing you don't want when there's a wrinkle in the fabric, or what we call, in the States we call those fish mouths. And the fish mouth is where water can find its way underneath when you're all finished. All right? The coating is very forgiving. It'll give you plenty of time to smooth it out. And you can see them. You can see them clear across the deck from where you're working. Oh, you got a fish mouth, or you got a wrinkle, come back over and smooth it out. All right, so absolutely smooth. Tucked in tight, so there's no gaps behind it. And you notice now we got all this extra fabric here. So in order to make this work, I'm going to do what's called putting a relief cut in it. Now you see why the scissors have to be sharp. And tuck it down. So now, nice and smooth. And one layer is over the top of the other here. This is the critical part though, is whenever you put fabric over fabric, all right, you've got to make sure it's got fresh coating between them. Even if you thought you just did it, just do it again. This is the spot that I see the most mistakes, is where people don't put coating between the two layers. All right? So, before I even do anything, I'm going to put some coating in between. So that I can lay that down. I can use the brush without dipping it to smooth it all out. Make sure it stays nice and tight. And how's it look?
Shows the fish.
Exactly. So I'm going to pick it up and smooth it out. If later on I find it, all right, it's starting to dry, you can go back and you can snip it, make it lay down, cut it out entirely and put another piece of fabric over it. It's very forgiving. Just don't leave them there. Okay? So now, without even dipping the brush, I'm going to use a dry brush. It nicely tucks in the fabric, makes it all sit down nice and smooth. And now I'm going to put the saturation coat on. This first coat we call the tack coat because it tacks the fabric into place. This next coat we call the saturation coat, and you put that on right away as soon as you get that area of fabric in. And again, if you notice, it's a generous coat. I'm laying the brush flat with the surface that I'm applying it to. Now, the tendency here is, well, I got a little left on the brush, I can stretch it out, finish it out. No stretching. Dip the brush again. One way to tell that you've got enough coating on is that the texture of the fabric is not visible. And if you see, in just the area I've done, you can't see the grain, the texture of the weave of the fabric while it's wet. Okay, when it dries, you might start to see a little bit. But that tells me I've got enough material in place. Okay, got that? That's the whole detail of doing an inside corner. All right? Now, I will do an outside corner for you as well. And that one I probably can do up on top. Because that's the two likely conditions that you have out here. Is you got an inside and an outside. But you also have where the deck meets the wall. And so all it is just a straight piece of fabric, part way up and part way out to the deck. Okay? Once the siding is off, you'll be able to come right up the wall, come right out onto the plywood. With a brush and a pair of shears, you can pretty much snip the fabric into any shape if you really need it. Okay? You'll find some odd condition where you have to contour it, snip it, and make it work. Got that so far?